So hello guys, today we are going to demonstrate features of the Korg Kontrol Editor software and review some examples of how can we set the parameters. Depending on what device we have, we might have different parameters, but more or less they look like the same. In this case, today I have a Korg Triton Taktile here, 49 keys version. I have already programmed it before, and we will check how it might function and how to program all of these buttons and sliders and knobs. So what we need is a kind of monitoring software for MIDI messages. So this piece of software is called, for example, there are many softwares with which you can monitor your MIDI messages on your bus. So first of all, I'm going to connect my Triton Taktile here to my PC using a standard USB cable. So it's turned on and recognized by my PC. It's a plug and play device. And now we start our monitoring tool first. MIDI aux. It looks like this. You just need to look for MIDI-aux. And you can find the download link everywhere, I think. So here, first of all, we can check our MIDI devices. In this case, I have the Taktile as a MIDI controller and a digital audio workstation in. So I select both. I hit OK. And now, whatever I do here on my keyboard, for example, I played this note, so you see these messages because I not only played it but also I released the note, so that's why we have two messages here. When I just push the key down, I get one message. When I release the key, I will get another message. So it's on and off. The same thing applies to all of these buttons and these pads here as well, because when you press a key, you will release it at some stage either. So there are two actions happening. Like I said, depending on what device you have, so in this case, the Triton Taktile is not only a MIDI controller, but also it generates sounds. So when I turn the sound off, it's a pure MIDI controller. So when I press the buttons here and when I change the knobs here or sliders, so you see all of these messages happening to the bus. So today we are going to check how to program each and every button here. But I have to say, not all of them are programmable on this device. So we're going to start the Korg Kontrol Editor. Here is the control editor. So this option is here checked. That means only the connected devices are shown. If I uncheck this, you see the list of supported devices by this software. Nano Key Studio, Nano Control Studio, what was the other one? Micro Key 2 Air, Micro Key 2 25 Air, Taktile 25 or 49, which is in this case our device here, and so on and so forth. I just go through the list. So I say I want only to show the device that I've connected. and OK. So, like I said, I've programmed this device before, but if it's first time you're using this device, I would highly recommend you to make a backup of the original state using these two options: receive scene set and receive scene data. So I would use this, and you see some MIDI messages are happening here, and once this first scene of mine is selected, I say receive this scene data from the device. Now it shows me whatever I had programmed before to this device for this particular scene. On Triton Taktile, I have up to 16 possible scenes I can define. And the first one, I've defined a bunch of control changes and some information here to work the best with my Kronos 2. You can see what's inside the Cubase, for example, receive scene data, and depending on what digital audio workstation or what device, you can define your own and replace the information here and write the changes to the device so that you can use your MIDI controller in the way you want it, not in the way that is delivered to you. So let's go through the parameters here to see what we have. So how to change the names of this is done here. The model, first I have to change the model to 49, because in this case I have a 49 keys device. And in the common, on this selected scene, I can change the name here. And I would say it's a controller, because I'm not going to use this device in this particular scene for any digital audio workstation, but rather I would use it to I would rather to use it for my Korg Kronos or any other keyboards. It doesn't matter, because we're talking about MIDI, and MIDI is in standard for all manufacturers. So if you have Yamaha, Roland, or whatever keyboard or synthesizer you have, or even, I don't know, DMX devices, which is able to communicate over MIDI. So you can program this device or whatever device which was listed in the beginning to work with. What is noticeable here at first, we see only one wheel here, mod wheel, but I have two on my real device. So I checked it around and I noticed this left one is standard-wise defined for pitch bend. So this is not programmable. This one here is not programmable. So now let's talk about the MIDI information and the control change messages. Every button or this mod wheel or all of these knobs and sliders could be used as a control change message sender. Like I said, this one is not programmed. You see, when I change it, when I make a change, the messages are visible here. And what is noticeable here is the first number here. These are letters, but they are numbers actually, because whatever we are seeing here is encoded in the hexadecimal. And for those who are not familiar with hexadecimal, I would start my calculator here. So all of the digital computers or digital systems are using the hexadecimal because it's something understandable for the machines. And We human beings use usually our decimal system for counting, because historically human beings used his fingers. So we had 10 fingers on both hands. The fingers were used for counting, and that's why we call it decimal. So we have 10 fingers. Usually we have 10 fingers. But the machines are using zeros and ones. So these are digits that are used, and so it is as it is. We have to pay attention to all of these numbers. Let's say these are all numbers. Even 3A is a number. It's not a, this A means a 10. So most of the digital equipment are using 8-bit system. 8-bit means 8 time positions for one digit. And one digit can have a value of 0 or 1. So imagine 8 places. Let me demonstrate it in Notepad maybe. Each place can have a value of 0 or 1. Let me just do it like this. 0 or 1. There we go. Let's say we have 8 places, 8 bits, and every bit can have a value of 0 or 1. So how many combinations we have here? Here 2 times, here 2 times, 2 times. So 8 times 2 times. It's then 2 to the power of 8, or 8 times 2 multiplied by 2. So we have then 2 to the power, let me just find this, to the power of 8. So I've prepared some information here to show what are the possible values with 8 bits. We use our calculator in programmer mode, and we can see for every position we have possible values of 0 or 1, and since we have 8 positions, so we have 2 options, 2 options, 2 options, 8 times 2 options, right? So what do we have in total? Let's say in decimal 2 times 2, so it's now 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, 6 times, 7 times, and 8 times. So we have 2 to the power of 8, it's 256 possible values here, but in MIDI only 7 of them are used. So we have half of this, so it is from, let's say, 7 of them it's used. Like I said, it's 2 to the power of 7. It is then 128, which is from 0 to 127. Now let's group them to the 4-digit groups. So then I have left side 4 digits and right side 4 digits. What do we have for 4 digits in general? Here I've listed the all possible values for 4 digits. All zeros, only this one is 1, only this one is 1, or 2 of them is 1, or if you look at this, we have the complete list of all possible values for 4 digits. In decimal, if we assign a decimal number to each row, how many possible numbers we have? If we say this is 0, this is 1, 2, 3, and so on up to 15, because it's 16. 0 is counted as 1 position by itself. So the problem here is from 9 on, we need 2 characters to show the number. So it's a problem. That's why we use the hexadecimal, to use only 1 character to show the value. And this is the difference between the decimal and hexadecimal. In decimal, we have digits from 0 to 9. In hexadecimal, we have digits from 0 to 9 and letters from A to F. So, for this left group of 4 digits, we have values from 0 to F. And for the right side, we have also from 0 to F. So now, one of these beats is reserved, like I said, in MIDI information what we are seeing here for the values. So we get always the values from 0 to 127. That's why. So let's say I crank this up to the latest possible value and I get, well, I don't know if you paid attention. If I keep it here, it's 7F, 128. And I release it, it's a 0. Let's now talk a little bit about MIDI implementation, about the device that you are going to control with your MIDI controller. In my case, I'm using a Kronos keyboard, which is a great workstation. And I looked in internet and I found this PDF about the MIDI implementation. Whatever device you're going to control with your MIDI controller, you need such information. Maybe it is in your handbook, or nowadays you can find all of this information over the internet. So you just need to search for your device, or it is a Yamaha, Roland, or whatever device it is, and look for the MIDI implementation for it. And here we get some useful information. If it is E, and the N is, N could be a number from 0 to F, according to what we just discussed. If it is E, then it is a bender change, like what we see here. Actually, it's my pitch bend, and I get letter E here. The other number could be different from a different manufacturer. So, let's continue with this. Let's say I want this knob here, this guy here, which has the volume label behind it. I want to use this to control the volume in my Kronos. I look for the volume here, and I see it's a B. So I cannot change this B. It is already programmed in this controller. It will send information with the B. But what I can change is this control message. The H stands for hexadecimal and D is a decimal. And value 7 in decimal, or even in hexadecimal, will be controlling my volume in my Kronos. That means if I click on this, my knob or whatever controller, whatever button, and I just go to the parameters of it, I say I want it as a control change, and here is the decimal number. We have to pay attention. In this software, all the numbers we put are in decimal. And we say the value could be from 0 to 127. I can't go further. I can go down, but I can't go up anymore. Because like I said, the MIDI is using 7 bits. And with 7 bits, what we discussed here, we have from 0 to 127. So it is minimum and maximum. let me just say, let's try to clear these. If I can clear the screen this way. So let's have a look at this particular knob. I'm going to make a change to this knob, and you can see it is a 7 here, and B stays also here. This B we cannot change, it is already implemented by the manufacturer like this, and this control change is what we can assign to that knob. So I've programmed it to send the control change number 7, and it is doing like that, and this value is the value. So I go all the way down, it is a minimum value of 0, and I go all the way up and I get to 7F here. I don't know what are these messages here, but anyways, that volume knob is sending from 0 to 7F. So (7F) from 0 to 7F, and this one for A is the brightness. The brightness is also sending out from this device. I don't know why, but anyways, this is the way you program this button. And let's talk about this global. You can assign a MIDI channel. Let me hide my keyboard for a moment. So here we have global control change that we already discussed, and with the control change number and the minimum and maximum values. In the MIDI channel, you can select between 0 to 16. MIDI is defined with 16 channels, but you can assign one of them as global. If I select global here, then my device will send this information for that particular button in the global, whatever global is defined on the device. Let's see what happens in action. Let me just bring my keyboard back. So it is programmed to be sending to the global. When I do this, what we see here, the channel is channel 1. Why? Because the global is defined here as 1, channel 1. If I increase it to channel 2, and now I do the changes, you see the channel is 2. So this gives you the freedom to select to whatever channel you define as global here. So in your case, maybe you need to assign to a dedicated channel. So for example, if you say, I want this button to send always to channel 1. So you select the channel 1, and then later when you change the global here and change that knob will only send to channel 1. For example, if you have global defined as channel 5, and all other buttons are sending the information to channel 5, but that particular one will send always to channel 1. So, like I said before, this mod wheel here represents this right mod wheel here. This is what we can program. The other one is fixed, defined as a pitch bender. And this one, I've defined it like this. And after you you're happy with your configuration here, you just go to the communication and say write scene data. And whatever changes you have made here will be written to the device and will stay here permanently. And you don't have to do this every time you turn on the keyboard. It's a one-time procedure. But you can do it as many times as you want. And you can do for multiple scenarios or scenes. And here you can define the scene, what scene you are going to use this for. For example, if I select my Kronos 2 scene here, all of the configuration for Kronos 2 will be applied. So let's talk a little bit about some buttons. So the sliders also have the same set of parameters as the knobs. They are more or less the same. So the knobs are rotary and the sliders just go up and down. So let's talk about this button here. On my Taktile, I have only 8 buttons here, but I can see 3 times rows of buttons. Because here, if I switch the button, you can see the LEDs here. If I switch it, I can have a different set of buttons. So if it's the upper one, so I will define whatever I want to have with all those buttons if the upper LED is turned on. So let me just hide the keyboard again to show you the parameters. Here you can see dedicated channel or global, and then later on define the global in your keyboard. Control changes we know already. You can use this to be sending a control change or to function like a note. If I select the note, what should be the note? But I want to have it as a control change. And then according to my MIDI implementation chart, I have to look for the parameter that I want to control with that button and find the control change number and assign it here. A minimum and maximum values here. In this case, I have assigned the on and off values both zeros. Why? Because, like I said before, when you press down anything, you are doing one action, and when you release the button, you are doing another action. And here I clear the screen, and once more pay attention. So let me just bring my keyboard here and pay attention to this. So I press down, only one message happened, and when I release it, another message happens. So you have to pay attention, because when you release the button, the last message is sent is very important, because the last message is going to transmit to the device as the last message. Let's talk about momentary and toggle. Momentary is that this button, this is programmed as momentary. This is exactly what you see. For one moment, it sends on and then off. In the toggle mode, it will generate only one message every time you press and release. This is the big difference. Depending on your application, you have to decide if you want it as momentary or a toggle. For my case, I used the momentary because I did not want these LEDs to turn on every time I press them. I want them immediately to turn off, because these are programmed to turn on and off the Karma scenes on my Kronos. And on my Kronos, I can see the LEDs. And if I use the toggle here, then probably the LEDs here and on my Kronos will not match, because here I don't get the feedback from my Kronos. And so I decided to use like this, as momentary, and I check my LEDs on my Chronos. So I hope this gives you an overview how to deal with your own device. Please share your ideas about this video, and let me know if you have any questions. Please subscribe to my channel and stay tuned for my next videos and tutorials. Thanks for watching.